I've always been fascinated by abandoned places. Old hospitals, forgotten mines, decaying factories, anything with a history that people tried to bury. My best friend Emma was exactly the same. Every weekend, we'd drive somewhere remote just to see what we would find. That's how we found the bunker. It wasn't on any map. We weren't even looking for it. We had been hiking through a dense section of national forest that locals rarely visited. The trees were so thick that hardly any sunlight reached the ground, and the air smelled like wet leaves and pine needles. About 2 miles from the nearest trail, we stumbled across a massive concrete slab sticking out of the earth. At first, we thought it was an old storm shelter. Then we noticed the rusted steel hatch hidden. Beneath vines, it had been forced open many years ago. The hinges were frozen in place, leaving a narrow opening just wide enough for someone to squeeze through. Emma looked at me with a big grin. There's no way we're leaving without seeing what's down there. Looking back, that was the moment we should have turned around. We climbed down an old metal ladder into complete darkness. The air immediately changed. It was freezing, cold enough that I could see my own breath. The smell was even worse than anything I've ever experienced. Mold, old water, rust, and something faint underneath all of that. It reminded me of spoiled meat. Our flashlights swept across gray concrete walls. There were faded yellow arrows painted every few yards. Some pointed left, others pointed right. Most had been worn away so badly that they were impossible to follow. The first hallway stretched farther than our lights could reach. It was completely silent. Even our footsteps sounded strange, echoing through the tunnels like someone else was following just right behind us. The bunker was enormous. Every hallway branched into another. Some rooms were completely empty, except overturned filing cabinets. Others contained rows of ancient computer terminals covered in dust. Huge reel-to-reel tape machines that sat against walls beside broken monitors with cracked glass. One room looked like a communication center. Dozens of phones lined a desk. Every receiver was lying on the floor. The wires had been ripped out. "What even is this place?" Emma whispered. I shrugged. "It feels military." None of the equipment looked modern. Everything looked like it had been abandoned decades earlier. The deeper we went, the stranger things became. One hallway had children's drawings taped to the wall, smiling stick figures, houses, dogs, rainbows, all yellowed with age. Then 50 feet farther, the walls were streaked with old brown stains. Not paint. The laboratory was the worst room. Metal operating tables stood beneath enormous surgical lights, cabinets filled with shattered glass jars lined one wall. Most were empty. Some were contained with cloudy liquid, with something floating inside, something too distorted to identify. Emma didn't joke anymore. Neither did I. Someone had smashed equipment all over the room, deep claw marks across the concrete walls. Not scratches, gouges, like something incredibly powerful had dragged its hands across the solid cement. Nearby sat stacks of research folders. Most have rotted into unreadable mush. One page remained intact. Across the top were 4 words: "Do not release subject." No explanation, nothing else. Neither of us spoke after reading it. We should have left then. Instead, we kept exploring. We walked another 30 minutes before realizing something. Every hallway looked exactly the same. Concrete, rusted pipes, heavy blast doors, numbered intersections. We had absolutely no idea where the exit was anymore. Emma pulled out her phone. There was no signal. Mine was the same. I think we went too far. I know. Then, Emma's flashlight flickered. Again, and again. Then it died. Complete darkness swallowed half of the hallway. She smacked it against her hand. Nothing. "You've got to be kidding me." We tried changing the batteries. Still nothing. "So, we're sharing yours?" I nodded. The beam suddenly felt very small. Everything beyond its edges disappeared into blackness. The silence returned until we froze. The sound came from somewhere ahead, like metal hitting a concrete. Then another, closer. Emma whispered, "Did you hear that?" Yeah. It stopped. For nearly a minute, neither of us moved. Then, something scraped against the wall. A long, slow, grinding sound, like fingernails dragging across concrete. Every instinct screamed at us to run. Instead, we walked faster, trying to stay quiet, trying to convince ourselves it was falling debris. Then we heard breathing, not ours. It was deep and wet, somewhere in the darkness beyond the flashlight. Emma shined the light ahead. Nothing. She turned around behind us. Nothing. The breathing stopped. We started walking faster. Then jogging. Then a howl echoed through the tunnels. It wasn't like any animal I've ever heard. It sounded almost human. Almost. But twisted into something impossibly wrong. We ran. No discussion, no countdown, just pure panic. The bunker became a blur of identical corridors. Left, right, another hallway, another doorway. Our footsteps echoed wildly. Behind us, something slammed into a wall. Concrete cracked. It was chasing us. The impact got louder. Closer. Whatever it was huge. Emma held the flashlight while we sprinted. The beam bounced violently, barely showing where we were going. Then we reached a split. Left and right. Everything happened in seconds. Emma turned right. I stumbled slightly. My momentum carried me left. I screamed her name. She shouted mine. Then the flashlight disappeared around the corner. Darkness swallowed me instantly. I stopped running. Not because I wanted to, because I literally couldn't see anything. I pressed myself against the wall, covering my mouth. Then, the creature reached the intersection. I couldn't see it. I only heard it. Its footsteps were impossibly heavy. It paused. For one horrifying second, I thought it had chosen my hallway. Instead, it exploded after Emma. The sounds that followed still haunt me. Concrete shattered. Metal screamed. That horrible howl echoed over and over. But Emma kept running. I could hear her footsteps getting farther away. The flashlight beam flickered faintly around distant corners. Then, a crash. Another howl. More smashing. Then, silence. No scream. Nothing. Just nothing. I stayed frozen for what felt like forever. Eventually, I noticed something. A faint glow, far down from Emma's hallway, barely visible around a bend. I forced myself to move. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the corner, her flashlight was laying on the floor, still on. The lens was cracked. The strap had snapped around it. The hallway looked destroyed. Chunks of concrete covered the floor. Pipes hung from the ceiling. Fresh scrape marks scattered the walls. Something had hit them with unbelievable force. Emma. The word barely escaped my lips. I wanted to yell, to ask if she was alive, but every part of me knew. If that thing was still nearby, calling out would only bring it back. So I picked up the flashlight. My hands shook so badly the beam bounced across the walls. There was no blood, no body, nothing, just destruction. I walked farther. Every instinct told me to keep searching. Maybe she'd escape. Maybe she was hiding. Maybe... Then I heard footsteps. Slow and heavy. Not running anymore. Just walking. Somewhere ahead, deliberate, impatient, the beam caught the edge of the corner intersection. Beyond it, something moved. I only saw part of it, a pale gray arm disappearing behind the corner, far too long. Its fingers brushed against the floor as it walked. I stopped breathing. The footsteps continued, not searching, hunting, just wandering, waiting. I stood there for 2 minutes before continuing. Every part of me wanted to go after Emma. She would have come back for me. I knew she would have. But I also knew, if I had turned that corner, neither of us would leave. So I backed away, one slow step at a time, trying not to make a sound. Every step felt like betrayal. Eventually, I turned and began searching for an exit. The bunker seemed very larger now. Without Emma talking beside me, every hallway felt endless. Every shadow looked alive. At one point, I reached a staircase that ended in a collapsed ceiling. I had to crawl over broken concrete to continue. Another hallway flooded ankle-deep with freezing water. The flashlight reflected off the surface, making it impossible to judge how deep it was. I moved as quietly as I could. Then my foot caught on a broken pipe. I fell hard. The flashlight flew from my hand and clattered across the floor. The sound echoed forever. My heart stopped. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 30. But there was nothing. No footsteps. No howl. Only silence. I grabbed the flashlight and kept moving. Nearly an hour later, I noticed fresh air. A faint breeze. Then, a ladder. I climbed so fast my arms burned. When I shoved open the hatch, evening sunlight blinded me. I've never been happier to see trees. The police searched the area for 3 days. Search and rescue teams went inside. They mapped out a part of the bunker before declaring it structurally unsafe. Officially, Emma was listed as a missing person. They never found her, or any evidence explaining what happened. Years later, I still dream about that place, about the flashlight lying in the hallway, about the footsteps, about the choice I made. Sometimes I convince myself she was already gone. Other nights, I wonder if she was hiding somewhere in the tunnels waiting for me to come back, waiting for help that never came. I still have her flashlight. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. The cracked lens still works, sometimes late at night. I'll notice it sitting on the shelf where I left it. And every so often, without anyone touching it, the lights flicker on by itself. Just once, before going dark again.